So you're scrolling social media and see these colossal pedal boards, which plants a seed in your mind. I want to build a pedal board to play in church, but I don't know where to start. Today I'm going to show you a complete rundown of how I would build a basic pedal board from scratch. I'll go through an effects primer on how I think about compression, overdrive, delay, and reverb, and share a design process. I hope that this will set you up for success, not just for a starter board, but when you scale up to bigger boards in the future. I'll even show you my troubleshooting process, and I encountered a few issues building the board, so watch out to see some scenes of confusion. The pedalboard process can be summed up into 3 phases: planning, building, and refining, roughly divided into this time allocation. As you can see, I'm a big advocate for planning. Planning involves conceptualizing the board with the pedals you want, including all materials needed. There are 4 P's of a pedal board's bill of materials: pedals, pedal board, patch cables, and power supply. First, let's talk about pedals. The goal of the electric guitar in worship is to provide energy and textures that propel a song. This is a completely dry signal, just the M tone. Without any effects, the electric guitar is like a rounder voiced acoustic guitar. Notice how the strums and pick accents are louder. This is an uncompressed sound, which is the most natural. When you apply compression, the loud parts decrease in intensity and the soft parts increase, making the sound much more even. As a result, it sounds thicker with more body but with less dynamics. For me, I like to apply moderate compression but blend in a clean, uncompressed signal. This is achieved with a blend control on the compressor, giving me the best of both worlds of having a natural tone with good dynamics and a thicker foundation. I also like to drive the signal through the pedal board hotter using the volume control on the compressor. Overdrive to me is the fundamental voice of the electric guitar, which provides energy and textures that no other instrument can provide. There are many types of overdrive out there, and some will appeal to you more than others. My advice is to find a combination of different types of drive. What you'll find with gain is that the more gain you have, the less attack and dynamics your resulting tone will be. Too much gain and compression leads to a loss of dynamics. You'll disappear in the mix. So do yourself a favor, play with less compression and less drive, and you won't compete with the rest of the band. The second most important aspect of worship guitar is ambience, delay, and reverb. But I'm not going to recommend those giant ambient machines today. Let's put on the music producer hat for the moment. Ambience plays an important role in music, providing spatial information that helps you locate where the guitar lives in an acoustic environment. Bone-dry guitar is actually quite difficult to listen to. Our ears hear bone-dry tone and our mind process it as incomplete because we live in a 3D environment where sound interacts in an acoustic space. Here's a hard truth. You may not need a reverb pedal on your board because your church worship space already has natural reverb. But I'll admit, it's a lot of fun to play with a ton of reverb. And ever since The Edge from YouTube popularized it, playing with loud and prominent delays is now a big part of the electric guitar style. The rule of thumb I follow is this: the thicker the delay and reverb, the less notes I play, reducing from full chords to chord fragments, then single note lines. pedalboard, patch cables, and power supply. There is an interdependent relationship between the 4 Ps. In general, the simpler the pedals, the simpler the other components are. A simple pedal will be one that has fewer controls, limited ins and outs, but it also needs a less complicated support system of pedalboard, patch cables, and power supply. A simple pedal like this, where it only has mono ins and outs, you only need one patch cable to go in, one patch cable to go out, dials, no screens, no crazy complicated menus, just pure knobs and dials. This is going to be a lot easier to integrate because you need less pedalboard space. You also need less power requirements. You may not need a isolated power supply. You may just need a simple daisy chain power supply. On the other hand, something like this with a stereo ins and outs where you need 2 patch cables in and 2 patch cables out, that's 4 patch cables. This is essentially a microcomputer with a screen on it, so it's going to need an isolated power supply. If you try to power this with the daisy chain power supply with other pedals in it, you're going to have a lot of digital noise. So the rig complexity does go up when you get more complicated pedals. So even before you buy your first pedal, you need to be thinking about the complexity of the rig. As a beginner, I would suggest the following. Simple pedals, those which can get you sounds fast without much tweaking, a small pedal board, one which is easier to carry around, and where you can, get decent patch cables and an isolated power supply. Cheap cables break too easily, and an isolated power supply will future-proof your rig and scale with you as you grow in your art and craft. I'm not gonna lie, the upfront costs can be steep. Be prepared to spend at least $1,000 for a future-proof rig. Now that you have an idea of the pedals you want to use, it's time to build the board. Building brings the plan to life, knowing that there will be speed bumps along the way that will need you to adapt and improvise. The better and more thorough your planning phase, the less problems manifest in the building phase. Here we go, let's build the pedal board. I have laid out all the pedals as I have done on Pedalboard Planner. So remember the 4 Ps, pedals, pedal board, power supply, patch cables. You need these 4 components to build a pedal board. Let's wire the power first. You can do this in any order you like, but I prefer doing power first. This is quite long. I can afford to connect it here. One of the things that I've learned, and the pros can back me up on this, you can daisy chain pedals like compressors and overdrives together because they are very low power consumption and they're not digital. That's a key thing. So digital pedals is a definite no-no that you cannot daisy chain together because you're going to get digital noise. Hopefully this is not going to cause much trouble. One more 3-way chain. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to power that way. I might have to change the orientation of this pedal because of how close the DC jack is to the output. Oh dear, what fitting. The angle was a bit wrong. Last one. Now I can afford to go short. Let's recount. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pedals left to power. Yes, I do have enough. Again, I'm not an expert builder. This is just the quick and dirty way of getting things done. I'm pretty sure you can Velcro things, you can put cable ties, make it all look neat. Today's video build isn't going to be about that. Right, patch cables. Let's do the simple ones first. Pedal to pedal, I'm gonna go with this. Not the nicest looking, but it will do. One thing you are going to realize is that the cable jacks do occupy some space, so you do have to account for those. I'll rub this another way. We'll have to do for now. Right, medium length. Can I? No, I need a long one for that one. Oops, this work? Oh wait, does it work? Turn. Okay. Yep, barely made it. Gonna have a lot of crossboard ones. I see a problem now. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Drives into line selector. Line selector is gonna switch between the 2 amp sims. Line selector out to the volume pedal out to the noise gate to these 2 guys. And now the reason why it's crisscrossing all over the place is because I do love my pedals to be in the same place. I do like them to be over here and not like some people where they put the volume pedal one side and the wah pedal on the other side. It's just not ergonomic to me. And tuck the pedals flat. I can tuck the cable in that way. Sort of hide the mess a bit. Almost. Can I do it? Nope. Oh man, this is too short. Sometimes pedalboard building is about making compromises. So as you can see, I had to make a compromise. Because for my patch cable choices, I can't have the tuner as the first pedal. I needed it to be the second in line so that I can use my patch cable. So wah, tuner to the drive section. No. I need an even bigger, even longer one. Okay, these are the massively long ones. What am I do with this? Yes, I could. Okay, I could. Not the nicest looking though. But no matter. Nope, not pretty at all. Even this is beyond mine. Can I do it this way? Yes, I can. Alright. Okay. You also gotta be careful that your pedals don't pimp onto your patch cables, which this is almost doing because I am not a good planner. Right, 2 more patch cables because I want to attach the sends. Definitely can't do this with the short cables. I need extra long ones, which I think I have. I'll also route this the other way. One problem that I don't think it's serious, but one problem I'm having with the LS2 tool that the power supply has covered up the hole that way, so I can't really use that hole. This is send A, which is to the last one, which is going to be another long cable. This is not pretty at all. Alright, feedback about the Earthen Ball patch cables. In my mind, they looked pretty because of the color, but as you can see, they do occupy a lot of mass. I reroute this bushes inside here. Stuff everything out of the way. Kind of give the illusion that things are alright. What if I push everything down through the hole? Let's repress this. Oh, I'm crimping. I'm crimping on cables here. Out. This is not a pretty board by any standards. I'm so sorry to any of my professional musician friends who are looking at this pedal board in horror because it just looks so horrible with all the cables kind of everywhere. But if you can get past the aesthetic of it, let's see what this board is capable of. Finally, the last step of the process, refining. Refining addresses the problems you faced after using the board live. Trust me, there will be problems, and it's up to you to troubleshoot what's wrong with the rig. I encountered 2 big problems with this rig, one of which I couldn't capture it because there was a filming issue. I was having severe volume drops with the Sense MGT2. The signal will come in and out, and it was unusable. I ended up recording with the Liverpool for the entire jam, but there was an issue too, which I didn't spot until after the jam. Let's see if you can spot it. What happened? There was nothing wrong with the clean tone. The problem only manifested with the drive tone. The guitar tone was clipping even though the audio signals to the recording interface were fine. I had an issue of internal clipping somewhere in my chain, and I suspected it was a delay in reverb. Let's hear that again and see if you can hear it when I dig in deep with my pick attack. This is how digital clipping sounds like in your rig. Now you're going to hear this with the Telecaster because it's easiest to hear that sort of very high transient kind of information. And then you hear how there's this squish distortion sound that isn't part of the rig and it sounds very unpleasant. And you hear this right now when I have the gain turned up high on the Tech 21. So this is how it sounds like with a gain pedal on. You hear the tail end, how that is distorting and that sounds very unpleasant. Let's hear how the delay and reverb sound like when I turn down the input into them. That was at 75% volume. This is now at 45% volume. Now I gotta turn up the gain on the interface. Yet, one more thing to be aware of when you're building an analog board, if you have digital pedals like a digital delay and a reverb in the signal chain, make sure that you're not clipping the input. So two sources of the kind of clipping, you could either be clipping from the M-sim when you're turning the gain up too high, or your overdrives where your volume level could be too high. This is the test rig that I'm going to try and diagnose what's wrong with the LS2. LS2 is now on AB mode. I'm connected to one of the loops. I'm going to turn on the pedal. Currently on bypass. Sounds fine. Okay, it works. How about the B loop? Come to think of it, I was experiencing much more volume drop in the B loop. Bypass. It works. Why does it work? Okay, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that it works, but for some reason, as you saw in the video, it was experiencing volume drops quite drastically. Okay, both the loops seem to work. Bypass works, the pedal works, so why was there volume drops just now? Let's try to rebuild the rig and we shall see. In the end, I could not replicate the volume drop issue with the GT2 and it hasn't manifested since then. Sometimes problems may come and go with no explanation, but knowing that this has occurred once, I'm mentally prepared to switch out to the Liverpool if it happens again. I also went ahead to reroute some pedals to make the cabling neater, like having the LS2 on the same row as the GT2 and Liverpool. This has cut down on the number of long patch cables needed and made the pedal board so much neater. Aesthetics is important. Speaking of important, if you found value in this video, please consider liking, subscribing, hitting that bell icon to grow the channel, join the community, and get YouTube to send this out to more people. Thank you. And that's me. What about you? If you're a beginner looking into getting pedals, what does your future board look like? And is there anything we can discuss together so that you're more confident in building your first board? Let's talk in the comment section below. go through this entire process, congratulations, you've built your first pedal board, which will certainly not be your last. As someone who's played in church for over 25 years, gear will be a big part of your life in worship ministry. Let us not forget that our role as worship ministers is to bring people into the presence of Jesus and to facilitate that with our music. The gear is just the tools we use to achieve that goal. Nothing more, nothing less. I continue to talk about pedalboard building in this next video where I use devices one level up in complexity, multi-effects, which involve a tweaking process. Click on that thumbnail when it pops up and I'll see you there.